Hello and welcome Biology 202 students. Today we embark on a journey into one of the body's most essential and often underappreciated systems, the urinary system. This system not only strictly filters out waste products and toxins from our bloodstream, but also maintains a delicate balance of salts, water, and other substances to keep our internal environment stable. Let's explore to see how the kidneys, bladder, and other connective structures function seamlessly to perform the vital tasks crucial for homeostasis and overall health. In today's lecture, we will cover the functions of the urinary system and its role in maintaining homeostasis. We'll start with the anatomy of key structures, followed by the kidney's blood supply. Then we'll focus on the nephron, the functional unit of the kidney, and its structure and function. We'll also look at the histology of the kidney, bladder, ureter, and male urethra. Additionally, we'll discuss urine formation and composition, urinalysis, and common urinary system disorders. The urinary system plays a key role in maintaining the body's internal environment. So here are the functions. The primary function includes blood filtration, resorption, fluid regulation, and excretion. The blood filtration involves the removal of waste products and excess substances from the bloodstream, ensuring that harmful toxins are effectively eliminated. Resorption is the process where essential substances such as glucose and certain ions, which have been filtered out, are returned to the bloodstream to maintain homeostasis. Fluid regulation is crucial for maintaining the body's fluid balance, electrolyte levels, and blood pressure, ensuring that all cells function optimally. Finally, excretion is the process by which waste products and toxins are eliminated from the body via urine, preventing the accumulation of harmful substances and maintaining overall health. So here is a broad view of the urinary system. We have the kidneys here, which connect to the ureters, which feed the urine into the bladder. And then we have the urethra, which is the opening where urine leaves. Now, our kidneys get blood from the abdominal aorta here, which supplies oxygen-rich blood via the renal artery to the kidneys. The kidneys have little hats on them called adrenal glands, and that's basically the whole system. Let's dive into the kidneys. So the kidneys kind of complicated, but it's also intuitive. So there are several distinct structures. Let's start with the outermost layer, the renal capsule. It is a tough fibrous layer that provides protection and structural support. And just beneath the capsule is the cortex, the outer region of the kidney, which contains the glomeruli and convoluted tubules essential for filtering blood. The renal columns are extensions of the cortex that separate the renal pyramids here, or they're also called the medullary pyramids because they're in the medulla of the kidney. And those pyramids are kind of pyramid conical structures within the medulla. Each pyramid ends in a pointed structure called the papilla here, which empties urine into the minor calyx. Multiple minor calyxes converge to form the major calyx. And the major calyces drain into the renal pelvis here. The pelvis is a funnel-shaped reservoir that collects the urine and channels it into the ureter right here for excretion. The pyramids contain thousands of nephrons. So in here, there are thousands of nephrons. They are the functional unit of the kidney, and each is responsible for filtering blood and forming urine. The kidneys are filtering blood, but where is that blood coming from? The kidney's blood supply is designed to support its vital filtration functions. Blood enters the kidney through the renal artery, which branches off of the abdominal aorta. The renal artery divides into several segmental arteries, each supplying different regions of the kidney, or segments. From the segmental arteries, blood flows into the interlobar arteries, which travel between renal pyramids. So each renal pyramid is a lobar. So interlobar, those are the arteries between the pyramids. These arteries further branch into arcuate arteries, which arch over the bases of the pyramids. So arcuate arches. Hopefully that helps. And this provides a clear demarcation between the cortex and the medulla. So that arcuate artery is the line between the cortex and the medulla. From the arcuate arteries, blood flows into the interlobular arteries, which penetrate the cortex. So we have interlobar, which is between the pyramids, and interlobular, which goes into the cortex and provides blood to our functional unit of the kidney. So the afferent arterioles branch off of the interlobular arteries. They're not here in this graph, but they'll be in the next slide, leading to the glomerulus, a tiny ball-shaped cluster of capillaries where blood filtration begins. Post-filtration, blood exits the glomerulus via the efferent arterioles. So afferent is arriving, so it starts with an A, so it's arriving, and then efferent, it's leaving, so it's exiting. And that E in efferent stands for exiting. Right? So the efferent arterioles, which then form a network of capillaries surrounding the nephron to facilitate the further resorption and secretion. We'll cover that in the next slide. These capillaries eventually coalesce into the interlobular veins, which drain into the arcuate veins, and then into the interlobar veins. The interlobar veins converge to form the segmental veins, which ultimately form to the renal vein, carrying filtered blood away from the kidney and back to the inferior vena cava. Here you can see the blood supply of the kidney, and then we're going to zoom in here. So we have our interlobular artery going into our afferent arteriole, which goes into the glomerulus. So the nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. It's crucial for filtering blood and forming urine. Blood arrives at the nephron through the afferent arteriole, which supplies blood to the glomerulus, a network of capillaries within the Bowman's capsule. So here's the Bowman's capsule. Here, a filtration gradient pulls various substances from the blood into the nephron. The resulting filtrate, now called tubular fluid, moves into the proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal means close. Convoluted means it's kind of hard to manage, and tubule is a tube. So here you can see it's wiggling, so it's kind of hard to keep track of. It's convoluted, and it's close to the glomerulus, so it's proximal. This is where significant resorption of water, glucose, amino acids, and electrolytes occurs. So from the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT, the tubular fluid travels through the loop of Henle, which extends into the medulla. The descending limb of the loop allows water to be resorbed into the surrounding medulla, while the ascending limb pumps out salts, increasing the salinity of the medulla. This countercurrent mechanism is essential for concentrating urine. So we're taking salt out, which also takes water out with it. The fluid then moves into the distal convoluted tubule, where further resorption and secretion fine-tunes the composition of the fluid. So here's the distal convoluted tubule. Distal is farther away from the glomerulus. And this right here is the collecting duct. So we had our fluid go through all of these structures. But what I didn't mention was after that afferent arteriole goes into the glomerulus, it actually moves out. So then we get the efferent arteriole, carrying blood away from the glomerulus, and it forms a secondary capillary bed around the nephron. This is known as the peritubular capillaries. This network allows for the resorption of vital substances such as water, ions, and nutrients back into the bloodstream. So lots of filtration happened here, and we put back the important stuff through here via those peritubular capillaries. This arrangement constitutes, what is it called? A portal system, which is essential for efficiently reclaiming substances and maintaining homeostasis. When the fluid reaches the collecting duct, it is now termed urine. The collecting duct, which receives input from multiple nephrons, channels the urine through the renal medulla, where additional water resorption can occur under the influence of antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. Next, we'll explore the journey of urine from the collecting ducts to its excretion from the body. In the kidneys, there are two types of nephrons, cortical and juxtamedullary. They play crucial roles in the body's renal function. Cortical nephrons, making up about 85% of nephrons, are primarily located in the kidney's cortex and are characterized by their shorter loops of Henle, which only slightly dip into the medulla. These nephrons are essential for basic filtration processes and reabsorption. In contrast, juxtamedullary nephrons are positioned close to the cortex-medulla boundary and are distinguished by their long loops of Henle that extend deep into the medulla. This structure enables them to concentrate urine effectively, a vital function for conserving water and regulating the body's fluid and electrolyte balance. They also help maintain the medulla's salinity, which helps move fluid and electrolytes in cortical nephrons. Together, these nephrons exemplify a division of labor that enhances the kidney's efficiency in filtering waste, balancing electrolytes, and maintaining overall fluid balance. Once urine enters the collecting ducts, it begins its journey out of the kidney. The collecting ducts converge to form larger ducts known as the papillary ducts, which are located at the apex of the renal pyramids. The apex is just that point there. Urine then flows from the papillary ducts into the minor calyx, which are small funnel-shaped structures that collect urine from the papilla. From the minor calyxes, urine drains into the major calyx and then into larger chambers that further collect and channel the urine. So then we get our major calyxes, which then merge into the renal pelvis, and from the renal pelvis, urine is funneled into the ureter. This is a muscle tube that propels the urine towards the urinary bladder through peristaltic contractions. The ureter's inner lumen is made out of transitional epithelium and smooth muscle. Then once the urine makes its way into the bladder stores the urine until it is expelled from the body through the urethra during urination. This entire pathway ensures that urine, which contains waste products filtered from the blood, is effectively transported outside of the body. So yeah, when you urinate, you are letting go of the waste and fluid that was taken from your blood by your kidneys. Urine flows from the ureters into the bladder through the ureter openings, which are located in the posterior base of the bladder and form a triangular area with the urethral opening called the trigon. This area leads into the urethra, where the internal urethral sphincter, a non-voluntary muscle, controls the release of urine. The bladder wall consists of the detrusor muscle, which contracts to expel urine, and it is lined with transitional epithelium on the inside. And then there's also rugae. You can see the little squiggles and wrinkles on the inner part of the bladder. Well, that allows the bladder to expand and contract. In males, the urethra passes through the prostate gland, or the prostatic urethra, before reaching the external urethral sphincter, which is under voluntary control. So both men and female have external urethral sphincters, and they're both voluntary. Now you might notice a difference here. One urethra is longer than the other. The female urethra is shorter than the male urethra, which contributes to a higher incidence of urinary tract infections, or UTIs, in females because the shorter distance allows bacteria easier access to the bladder. So for histology, you need to know where the glomerulus is in these tissues. So here's the glomerulus. There's plenty in the cortex. And then here is the Bowman's capsule. It's surrounding that glomerulus. And then over here in the medulla, these are collecting ducts. Each one of these lines. Now let's take a look at the bladder and the ureter. The ureter is lined with transitional epithelium, which allows it to stretch as urine passes through it. It also has two layers of smooth muscle. There's an inner and an outer layer, and those contract rhythmically to propel urine towards the bladder. The bladder is also lined with transitional epithelium and contains fold called rugae that flatten as the bladder fills. The detrusor muscle, composed of three layers of smooth muscle, an inner, a middle, and an outer layer, contract to expel urine during urination. So we learned where urine comes from. It comes from the blood. And so just like a blood draw, analyzing urine can actually be very helpful in assessing someone's health. So this is called a urine analysis. But before they do any chemistry stuff, they look at the urine's color. If it's clear, how dark it is. If it's a very dark amber color, that could be a sign that the patient is dehydrated. And if it's very cloudy instead of clear, that can be a sign of a UTI. Now, the pigment in urine, what makes it yellow, is something called urochrome. Another thing that can be found in urine is glucose. If glucose is present in the urine, this can be a sign of diabetes mellitus, or a super sugary meal. In the olden days, doctors would sample some urine, and if it was sweet, that's how they would tell that there was glucose in there. And that's really how they discovered diabetes. Ketones appear during fat metabolism, when on a strict ketogenic diet or after prolonged fasting. This can also be a sign of diabetes, as someone's blood sugar can drop very quickly and they will go into ketosis so that they have some kind of fuel feeding their cells. The detection of proteins like albumin can indicate kidney issues such as damage to the kidney. Another thing that can indicate the same things is blood in the urine. This can be because maybe you got kicked in the kidney and you're literally bleeding out of your kidney, or maybe there's a kidney stone that has damaged the ureter, so you get some blood in your urine. There's also another reason you can have blood in your urine, and that's because people have menstrual cycles. And there's literally just blood next to the urethra. That's why it's important to clean the urethra before getting a urine sample. Bilirubin, not typically found in urine, may indicate liver problems if present. Specific gravity measures urine concentration, with normal values between 1.005 and 1.03, and deviations from that can suggest dehydration or kidney dysfunctions. So a high specific gravity indicates typically you're dehydrated. And that's just because there's more stuff in the urine that causes a higher specific gravity. Urine pH is normally between 4.5 and 8. If that changes, it can highlight metabolic or respiratory imbalances. Urobilinogen levels should be between 0.1 and 1.0 milligrams per deciliter. Higher levels might suggest liver distress or excess red blood cell breakdown. Finally, the presence of nitrates and leukocytes often signals bacterial infections or urinary tract inflammation. Now let's talk a little bit about some pathologies. So we mentioned UTIs, or urinary tract infections. These can actually become bladder infections as well, and if it goes untreated, it may travel up to the kidneys and cause a kidney infection. So a UTI often occurs when bacteria enters and infects any part of the urinary system, including the bladder, urethra, and kidneys. Bladder infections, a type of UTI, specifically affect the bladder's lining. And so some symptoms are urgency. That means like you feel like you got to go pee now. And then more frequently. So you have to do that even more frequently. And then pain during urination if it burns. And then if you notice some cloudiness and a foul odor, that can also be a sign of a UTI. If a lower urinary tract infection, like a bladder infection, is not treated promptly, the bacteria can ascend the urethra to the kidneys, leading to a more serious infection known as pyelonephritis. This can cause flank pain, fever, and nausea. Next, we'll talk about kidney stones. So kidney stones are solid masses formed from crystals accumulated in the kidneys, typically composed of calcium oxalate, uric acid, or other compounds. And they are hard like a rock. And they can actually be different shapes. So some are nice and round, and some are spiky. Some symptoms for those are severe pain in the side and back, below the ribs, pain during urination, or pink, red, or brown urine. The risks associated with kidney stones, they can cause blockages and lead to kidney infection or decreased kidney function if not effectively treated or passed. Now, I've seen a lot of people with kidney stones, and they all say, don't get a kidney stone because it hurts so bad. Next, we'll talk about glomerulonephritis. That's a mouthful. And this is the inflammation of those tiny filters in the kidneys, the glomeruli. It can be acute or chronic, meaning it can last for a couple of days or weeks, or it could be months. And it may arise on its own or as part of another disease, such as lupus or diabetes. Symptoms include hematuria, that is blood in the urine, proteinuria, which is protein in the urine, and high blood pressure, and swelling in the legs, ankles, or around the eyes. The impacts of glomerulonephritis is it could potentially lead to chronic kidney disease, requiring careful management to prevent progression. So that leads into the idea of kidney disease. Kidney disease is hard to deal with. Kidney disease refers to a lot of conditions that impairs kidney function over a period of time. It's often chronic, so that would be chronic kidney disease, and can progress to kidney failure if not managed properly. And if it is left untreated, it can lead to end-stage renal disease, which can require dialysis, which is when you're hooked up to a dialysis machine and it filters your blood for you, or it can require kidney transplantation. Always do your best to take care of your body, and if you're taking care of someone whose kidneys are failing, always be patient because they are going through a very difficult time. Here's a fun fact about organ donation. If you yourself donate an organ, you get to go to the top of the list to receive organ donation if you need it. As always, thank you for your time and attention. I hope your day goes very great and you have fun in lab this week.